Ladies and gentlemen, welcome everyone to episode 466 of Just Joshing. I'm your host, Joshua Pentalaresco. I write stuff. I guess I have to say I draw stuff, and I podcast too. Today I'm returned by an old friend. He is a sci-fi writer of great repute. He's about to take over the YouTube world with his YouTube channel. At least he's trying to. Anyway, I'm with the one and only Ron Friedman. Man, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you doing? It's
I'm good. I mean, I did some. I've been doing temp work in Windsor, and I've been trying to turn my podcast into a full time gig. It's been kind of a fun experience so far. So, um, yeah,
yeah.
like
I still have my full time job, so for me it's a very part time gig.
oh no, that I got you. I mean, I made the choice. Like I could have stayed a full time worker in this time. It would have been fine, but I mean, for me, like just where I was in my life, I figured if I was going to do something, this was the time to try it. Because if it doesn't work out, right? I mean, it's not going to. I mean, I don't have anything really to lose, right? Your situation is obviously different. Your family, you built a life for yourself, so you can't just jump away as quickly as you maybe you'd like to, right?
Yeah. Hopefully in a decade or so I could retire, and then I'll have more time to
Did you get tired?
do the my passionate stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So basically, what I want to talk about is that when you write or when you do some creative stuff, I believe you want to do it because you want to change the world. You want to make the world a better place.
I definitely agree with the first part. I
And
definitely I
even
definitely
even if
agree with the first part for sure. Yeah.
even if it's entertainment,
Oh,
it's still
absolutely. I mean,
something that
like
makes the
science
world a better.
science fiction. If you look at it historically, it's always about critically thinking about the future. Like the best. I still think, and this is how old I am. I still think the best stuff I ever did with science fiction. I love the best science fiction was like the '60s, the '70s, and the '80s because I thought it was a really good balance between what the scientific knowledge of the world was then versus the moral and ethical implications of it now and what it might look like in the future. There are still authors that do that. I think Robert Sawyer does that very well. I think there are other authors like Fonda Lee plays with this as well as some of her young adult stuff for sure. But I do think I do think the science and the entertainment has become a lot more prevalent over say the ethical and moral dilemmas. And I don't say it's necessarily a bad thing, but I do think some of the critical thinking aspects of science, as modern North American science fiction, anyways, has lost some of that critical thinking process that was there in some of the older stuff. That's just my opinion. I could be totally off base, right? There are definitely authors today that still
It's
focus
yeah,
on that.
not all of it, but
Yeah,
you're right. A big portion of it did.
yeah,
Like Robert J. Sawyer, for example, continue to do that. But a lot of the science fiction right now is it's either dystopia,
hmm
which lead us to 1984 style or Hunger Game or stuff like that, or the other things is post-apocalypse, that something really bad happened and then people are trying to recover. But we don't have a lot of the technology optimist science fiction anymore, and a lot of people have misconception about the future. They're not prepared for the future. They don't know what what things may happen in the near future. So that's a role that I think needs to come back to science fiction.
yeah. I think like we're talking like looking at what's going on today. Like one of the big things about today is I mean there's definitely a lot of there's
Pandemic.
skepticism. There's like we it's funny in one sense we've gone backwards, in one sense we've gone forwards. We've had experts on television for decades, and I think what happened, and this is just a theory of mine. I think what's happened is because of just how business operates, because of how television works, and how all these things have utilized experts over the last 40, 50, 60 years, it has watered down the concept to some degree because an expert is someone that can come in and explain what's going on, is transparent about the information, and can do it where someone like, I've been going with how Rob Surge defines the master. Someone so knowledgeable about a topic, let's say someone like me, a schmuck, goes and asks a question, well, how does this work? Can answer the question in a way that I can understand it. I loved like one of the things I loved about Asimov in particular was he could do that. and he did it so concisely and so brilliantly in his writing. Whereas some science fiction authors spend pages or chapters explaining a concept, Asimov could do it in a page or two, right? And it was amazing. Like I got it, I understood it, I got where he was coming from completely, and I was able to learn and grow as a result of that. I cannot say I think what's happened is that kind of expertise became very rare, and what happened is the experts like, hey, I'm an expert, please buy this product, right? And we've had a ton of that for the last 20, 30 years. So now, in an era where expertise is strongly needed, its credibility is kind of shot before it starts. Because I'm an expert. What does that mean anymore? You get what I'm saying about that?
Yeah, so maybe somebody wrote a book about it, or a few tweets. If
Yes.
you do a few tweets, you're probably not qualified as an expert. In the past, an expert is somebody who spent at least 10,000 hours
Mhm.
improving his expertise. Now, people claim to be expert even if they do a lot less.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and that's I feel like I think that's the big challenge like going forward is because expertise has been watered down so much, and going back to what we're talking about, like what the future might look like, the optimistic future thing. I think honestly, I've associated like we have as a culture we're a lot less trustworthy about tomorrow. Does that make sense? Do you agree with that?
That's a lot of the trend. Yeah, I agree with that, and that's a lot of the trend that's going on right now in current science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
As I said about the part about dystopia,
Mm-hmm.
this is big. This is what sells now. Uh, yeah. So yeah. So the two main topics I was trying to push in my writing and also in my blogging, and now I start to go into YouTube. Uh, One is space, space settlement. That means that humanity should not be confined to only one planet. And the other thing is related to health issue or health span and how to live longer and healthier. Based on the traffic on what I see, that like I get a lot of more views and likes when I talked about space, so I end up talking about it more.
Well,
Uh,
space is awesome. Like I like space. I mean, we even now, like when I lived in a small town, that's the thing I miss about living in a small town. I can look up, I can see every star in the sky, and you just cannot help. I don't care how jaded you are. Look up and go, I'm so tiny, and there's all this awesome out there. And I think, and that's what like the cool thing about science. The really cool thing about science is it can be a lot of fun. Like I look at like whether we're talking about big stuff with space or small stuff like with nanotechnology or like video game like computer apps and stuff like that, there's a sense of wonder. And I think what space encapsulates is that what's out there, like what's beyond that horizon. And I love that. Like I still feel that even when I looked up Mars, looked up things about Mars, and you learn things about Mars. That's cool. Like we got more knowledge, but there's still a bit of that. There's always going to be that mystique until we actually go there. You know what I
why?
mean? Like that mystique of like what Mars feels like, what we imagine what Mars is like, or we imagine what the moon is like, or we imagine like the galaxy because we can look in the stars and just go, whoa.
Well,
But
imagine what the moon is like. It's not that difficult because we had been to the moon
mhm.
50 some years ago. And I think there is a reasonable chance that we will go to Mars in the not very far future.
Oh, I agree. No, it's
Maybe
like
10 years, maybe less.
I mean, depending on what you looked at, like the technology has been either on the fringe or there for the last little while. But what I mean by that is no one lives on the moon yet. No one lives on Mars yet. So it doesn't have it. It still feels like a place, like
And
type
that's,
of,
yeah, this is something I feel that one of the things that our civilization kind of failed,
yeah,
because we don't want to be confined to one planet for a very long time, for permanently. Look what happened to the dinosaurs.
yeah,
It's not a very good strategy. On the other hand, there is a lot of misconception right now about amongst many people that if people pushing or wants us to go to Mars or go to the moon or other places in space, this is going on the expense of Earth, but or Earth science, or the expense on create poverty or something, and that is not entirely not true. It's actually the other way around.
Yeah.
For example, the most basic example, which is probably not very likely to happen, is an asteroid impact. This is what basically what killed the dinosaurs,
Hmm.
and there are some movies about an asteroid coming and destroying Earth. So if we become a spacefaring civilization that is capable to launch spacecrafts into space, we actually stop such an impact from happening by diverting the asteroid long before he hits Earth. So
No, I mean that I would. It's a cool like the idea of a united federation of planets, like that whole like it's a very Star Trek, and it's definitely something Star Trek and had and other shows have talked about. And I mean, it is very possible that once we deal with whatever this decade is going to be a wonderful challenge. You can kind of see that already. But once we get through the challenges of this decade, there's definitely a possibility going forward that, I mean, we're going to be looking at Mars, we're going to be looking at the moon, we're going to be looking at even Venus. I mean, although Venus is a very toxic planet, I mean, there might be stuff there. I mean, there might be stuff there we need. There might be asteroids. There might be other moons. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot in this solar system that we have seen, but we haven't really explored. And there's so much potential with that.
yeah, Venus, if you go to the surface, is a hellhole. It's a
Yes, it
fog.
is. Oh, it totally is.
But surprisingly, if you go up in the atmosphere about 50 kilometers above ground, then it has no oxygen, but the condition, both the temperature and the atmospheric pressure, are very similar to Earth. So we have almost the same gravity, you have the same atmospheric pressure, same temperature, you have more sunlight. That means you can have more solar power. So if you have floating city 50 kilometers above the surface, this is actually a very good place to go,
Uh,
Venus.
and
Uh,
and and I've heard Mars is very similar. It's very similar to Earth, except it has no ozone layer, right? And so the challenge there would be how to make those planets, terraform those planets so make something more habitable to us. And as always, we always speculate like we would change. I think as we would change as people too. Different planets, different atmospheres, different soils. There's different possibilities of what a human being might become going forward as well.
so the question is how to convey this information to audience, to first of all for people who wants to know about it, learn about it more, or people who are against it, who has some prejudice or think this is actually a bad idea. How do you convince them? How do you relay the information, the correct information, to uh, change their mind, make them more positive to the idea? So one
And
idea is write blog posts, do videos, write books, short stories. I wrote quite a few short stories. I published about 18 on these topics. Yeah, I can talk to you about Quera. Uh, Quera is a platform that for question and answers. For some reason, I was successful there. I started going and I started to answer questions in 2017. I didn't know what, so I can show you traffic from the first 6 months that I posted almost every day. I got like 0 views, 5 views, 6 views, 20 views, again zero. It was very, very low. And then this is something that perhaps I hope will happen to you as well. One day, I wrote an answer about Jupiter. I think back then there was some story about people were upset that uh, Pluto
mhm.
was no longer a planet.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
So people were very emotional about it. And I wrote, somebody asked Jupiter, is Jupiter a planet? So I said an answer pretty short, maybe 1 or 2 paragraphs, that actually the definition of planet, it's something that revolve in orbit around the sun. But Jupiter is so massive that it actually revolve around a point that is outside the surface of the sun, not by much, by only 7%. So basically, the sun and Jupiter are revolving about the center of gravity, the biocenter of these two bodies, and that center is outside the sun. For example, the moon and the Earth are revolving around a point that is about, it's not exactly in the center of Earth because the moon also has mass. It's about 1600 kilometers from the surface, but it's still deep inside Earth. Jupiter and the sun are revolving around a point that is outside the sun. So I told you, it's considered a planet, but who knows, according to the blunt definition of planet. And that post, boom, like I got one day 80,000, just before World Collide 2000, got 80,000 views. And then it got to 1 million views. And Quera sent it to 10 million people. And oh, so now I don't have this big number, but I still have like 30,000. It
Well,
did
no,
don't get much, but I still get like 30,000 views a day.
you know,
Just a residue. I write other stuff that got 100,000 views and stuff, but
but
there is
I mean
some.
that's great. I mean, for you, I think because for you, it's just like anything else. Like you're very passionate about the future. You care about outer space. You care about where we're going as a culture. And I got a big question for you about that actually before at some point in this because I realize I've never asked you this and I think I should. But the thing is like I think what happened was like it happens. I post stuff, right place, right time. And every once in a while, like right now, I'm starting a brand new platform. Very little few people are watching. I can look at my views right now, and they're very small compared to what I was doing on the podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm right, but I have faith that inevitably what's going to happen is I keep having different people. We talk about different things. It blows up, right? It just blows up, and it becomes something different. And I do feel like that's the future. Um, and but again, I have to work on it, right? It's not a question of
Then it may or may not come, but when it comes, it will
yeah,
come to something that you didn't expect at all. Like
no,
I didn't
exactly,
expect
no,
I
like
know people tell me that sex sells, and say no, Jupiter cell.
oh, Jupiter cells. Oh no, what passion cells, man, passion cells. I mean, here's the thing, right? And this is the quick question. I want to actually ask you this. You have a hope for an optimistic future. So in your head, where would you like the future to go?
When would I
Like,
like
like,
that?
like, like you imagine the future all the time. So for you believe it. Like science fiction writers are romantics. We all are. No matter how bleak we might write sometimes, we're romantics. We have big hope for the future. So what's your hope? I've always actually wanted to ask you this.
Well, I don't know that we are going to have a optimistic future.
Yeah.
What's gonna happen? I think probably, unless there is some kind of catastrophe, if you look at the trend, is that there are going to be some disruptive technologies that are going to change the world. In one way is that I hope we will become a spacefaring civilization that will start to colonize Mars, the Moon, the asteroid belt, maybe Venus, other places, and then eventually go to other star systems. On the other side, that I think that there is also big revolution going out in genetic engineering.
Mhm.
I don't know if you heard about a week ago, Google, the DeepMind, their computer that Google did, they managed to predict. They have a very strong artificial intelligence computer that can unfold protein. There are like hundreds of millions of variant of protein, and it costs a lot of money. It could be between $1,000 and $100,000 to map one protein. Now it's going to be cents. It, this is
Ooh.
going to change the way we do medicine. There are also other advances. If you heard about Cas9, so we are very soon. We are already able to uh, edit DNA.
Mhm.
COVID, for example, AIDS, when it came in the 1970s, 1980s, it took, I think, like a few years to map it.
It,
COVID was mapped in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Remember, we had an argument about how long it would take
yeah,
to
yeah,
develop.
absolutely.
And you say it's going to be decades, and I tell you, no, it's going to take a year and a half. I mean, it's
Well,
going to be a few months, but the testing will take a year and a half.
yeah, we'll see. Like, so my big worry is we've kind of been here before too technologically. But way back in the '70s, they tried something very similar in the States. It did not go well. Well,
They didn't have.
I hope you're right. I really do. I'm not trying to like poo poo this, but they tried something like this way back in the day too. And
Oh,
so I'm going to be. I'm cautiously optimistic. How would we go with that? I'm cautiously optimistic. I think the technology, like from a technological point of view, we've come such a long way from where we were. My big concern for us as a species is our ethical point of view. I'm not sure that I don't know if we're more or less ethical than we were than we were in the past. Some ways I think yes, some ways I think no, and so
but
I feel like the technology's there. Absolutely, the technology is incredible today. What we can map, what how even just the way the vaccines are going, they're going deep into RNA. Like we're talking like cell like into the genetic codes themselves. Old vaccines never could do what these ones can do potentially. So I mean that's an incredible leap in technology. But where someone like me goes, let's wait and see. It's the ethics. I'm not like again. We there's a lot of profit drive science. Unfortunately, it's not necessarily just about the wonder. It's about the money, right? So I kind of like go okay. Let's see what happens going forward before I say yes. But a year from now, you might be right. Like you might be completely. I hope you're right. I mean, maybe we've overcome this, and it's a huge hurdle, and if we solve COVID this fast, we can solve some of the other major issues that are still here super fast too. And that's a great hope. But I mean, we're kind of still, even now, we're still in the wait and see phase of that too.
it's been tested on 38,000 people,
Mm-hmm.
the Pfizer vaccine. So yeah, they're starting already started to give it in the UK, and I think maybe also in Canada and the US. So in the next
Mm-hmm.
places they will start to give it. And I don't know. I hope COVID will be behind us in 6 months.
Oh, it'll how we do a good deal with it will definitely change one way or the other in 6 months. I think psychologically speaking, I don't think like we're in lockdown here. Are you guys in lockdown there?
Sorry,
Are you guys in lockdown there? Like we
lockdown. I think so. Yeah, I've been locked down. I'm working from home, so
yeah. No, it doesn't
3 weeks
impact
working
you. Like
off. So I don't know if I don't go out. So I don't know if
no,
people.
okay, fair no, fair enough.
I think you cannot have gathering. In the past, you could have a gathering up to 10 people. Now they don't allow up even that. And
Yeah,
uh, yeah, restaurant. I think they will start only do like we will not be able to sit in a restaurant. You can only be order out or
okay, so
pickups.
that's right. So you guys are kind of like we have it. We just like where I'm at. We just entered lockdown again. We're in our second lockdown, and what I was saying is, I think next year, one way or the other, like 6 months from now, hopefully we move past this. And
Yeah,
I think that things will change for sure. But right, I don't know if we're gonna have another lockdown. I have to go out because I'm considered an essential work with what I'm doing temporarily while I'm doing this, and I feel the hostility. I like sometimes when I go outside and it's like, you know what I mean? It's just like
yeah, man.
it's that like I don't know if we can do another lockdown after this one. I just don't. But I do think that regardless of whatever happens, I think next year we're definitely going to get out of this lockdown, then unlockdown, then restrictions. We're still, I think, going to have restrictions for a few years on some things here and there. I don't think travel is going to come back anytime soon.
I don't know. I don't also following the stock exchange. So there are some stocks like the cruise ships are trying to recover. You start to see advertising for cruise
Well,
ships.
advertising does well in even bad. Actually, advertising does better in bad times than it does in good times. Like
So I think once the vaccine, once maybe 70% of the population will be vaccinated, a lot of the restrictions are going to be removed, and you're going to see again more flights, more
yeah.
people
Well,
cruises, more travel.
yeah. Well, like I said, I don't. I have a buddy. We had a discussion. He's into the technology end of things. He figures 2023 is when things will feel normal fully again, and I think he's about right. I think he's about right. So I mean, we can. I think this year coming up, we're going to get out of the cycle we're in. We're going to go to something different, and I think we're going to gradually, over time, just it'll slowly go back to whatever normal is going to look like in 2022, 2023, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to ask this, a fun one. What did you what did you discover? Like everybody that's gone through this time, like has like in my case, I've dabbled with drawing. I've been trying to be as inspirational as I can with different things. But good has come from this. Like for you, what has been the good thing that has come out of this, or what has made you come out of your comfort zone a little bit in a good way?
Less commute time.
Yes.
So that save an hour a day or more than an hour a day.
Yeah. You think you're ever going back to? Are you going to go back to the office when this is over, or do you think you guys are going to stay?
Yeah, actually, I lost my job and I found another job.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, and the new job also going to working remote now. So
you're going to be permanently remote now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been remote since I think that when I started the new job, I went for 1 week and then back to working remote.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've been basically working from home in this basement, in this chair, which is why I bought these glasses.
I gotcha.
March.
Yeah. So I guess that's this.
And also, we don't travel, so we're able to save more money.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Can I ask this? Do you how to put this? Do you like working from home? Like, do you prefer this to actually going to an office?
I haven't thought about that.
It's just
definitely an advantage in terms of commute time.
Oh, absolutely. Like, do you miss the contact, or do you?
Yeah, actually, when you start a new job, it's more helpful if you are in the office, and you can communicate. Like you can do video chat, but I think the communication is better face to face.
No. Well, that's fair. No, I just figured I'd ask because it sounds like you.
I work in IT that's easily converted to remote work, but I still think, especially if you want to learn stuff, it's better to do face to face.
Absolutely, I think teaching especially is better with the personal experiments. You can see more close, and you get definitely more of an interactive thing that you can't do from a distance.
Yeah, my kids are in the room doing everything through Zoom, or Teams, or.
I think everybody's sick of Zoom.
The whole year, like a year now.
Yeah, well, no, everybody's sick of Zoom.
The test or doing the exams through Zoom, and I don't know. That's.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, I could just the one thing I've noticed, like there's like paperwork for everybody seems to have gone up, which is just like wow. Like you think in it you would think that the less it would be more efficient workspace. Like I think working at home by and large is more efficient, right? But I found like training and stuff like that was just like it's a bigger pile of work than it was in person. So it just that
on the upside, since we spoke earlier about space, if you do want to become an astronaut, that's an excellent way to practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
In this little capsule in the International Space Station for I don't know a year or 6 months, and that's pretty small confined space.
So like here's a fun one for you. When we get to that point, there's odds are you're going to still be around when we get to the point where we're going in outer space on at least somewhat more like where people are traveling there for tourism, living there, that kind of stuff.
People have already been traveled to tourism.
Oh, absolutely. But
there are constantly people in space since 1999. So
no, absolutely. But I mean, like what I mean by that is instead of working in space or doing experiments, or one of the things I was talking about right before things went awry was I saw this plane being built so you could go to the moon as like a tourist thing and then come back, right? so that like becoming more recreational than just professional. So if we're at that point, it's only a matter of time before it's a living space there as well. Would you, if the opportunity towards it, it's going to be closer to your twilight years, but it's definitely a chance when you go to the moon, possibly Mars, but for sure the moon. Would you leave the planet and live somewhere off planet if you had the opportunity?
But the high level question is yes, but I need to know the specifics, like how risky it is. If you tell me you have a, I don't know, 50% chance of dying, then I'm probably gonna say no.
Fair enough.
But if it will be safe enough, and I mean for work, and I will earn money,
Yeah.
yeah, sure.
No, I just see. I think we're both going to be alive to see it become a regular occurrence. I do think I'm not sure the risk factor won't be completely gone when we get there. Now, our kids or our grandkids, it'll be like planes today, right? There's always going to be that little bit of risk of a crash, but by and large, we're going to have it under control, right? Barring a catastrophic end of the world civilization thing, regular flights to space will be a thing. So I'm just saying. So there will be always a little bit of risk, I think, in our lifetime. So I guess maybe no. But I think, would you like to go? Even if it was risky, just to do it once. Say you did it, would you try it?
Yes, given that I applied to become an astronaut, then the answer is yes.
Yeah.
I even passed the first stage, but I didn't pass the second stage.
So what's the difference? What's the first stage and what's the second stage?
Like the criteria and the first test they did
No, like just out of curiosity, like what is that exactly? Is it like a knowledge based test? Is it like a personality test? Like what was it?
Yeah, it's a combination of
Uh,
knowledge, personality, and then like an IQ test. And I
okay,
don't think it's exactly an IQ test, but something similar.
okay, and that's the first stage. And what's the second stage?
And then you do it. Need to do it again, and then you need to do like the test you in a pool. I don't remember all the stages.
Oh no, I was yeah, but I mean that's really cool that you actually tried.
There are like 5 or 6 stages. I passed the first one.
No, it's okay. I mean, I think it's just cool that you actually tried, man. That's awesome. But
Yeah, and actually, before I came to Canada, I was in the Israeli Air Force. I was trying to become a pilot, and eventually I was there 8 months. But then I went to another job in the Air Force. But back then, that was the way to become an astronaut. You need to first become a pilot, and then now you can do it through an engineering degree or science degree. You don't need to.
I gotta ask this then. Did you you've always have you always dreamed of flying? Like whether just a spaceship or plane, like is that something you've always wanted to do?
Yeah, evidently not enough because I
No,
eventually.
I get you, but you tried. Like honestly, huge respect. Like you went for it, and that's all anyone can ask, really, right? But that's
Yeah,
cool.
and then you can go back to the topic we spoke earlier about the genetic
Yeah.
evolution that is coming. So I would say it would be possible in the future to become biologically younger.
Yes. Well, so I've, I've
Fix some of the, maybe not 100%, but fix a lot of the damage caused by living.
So I think so. I'm watching like what's interesting about like technology, not just biologically, but even like mechanically. We're looking at things on like a nanoscale now or a pico scale now. Like we're not going big anymore. We're going small, and it's fascinating how much you can do on those levels to change absolutely everything. Um, and I'm looking at stuff like Rice University's doing with nanotechnology. I'm looking at what Russia's doing with some nanotechnology stuff, and it's incredible what you can build. And as you so pointed out earlier, like we can manipulate DNA. So when we're going down to scales like that, when we're thinking of those scales like that, like we are able to change fundamentally everything. I think the question becomes like,
Should we?
should we is one, The other one is this, um, like we change enough things, are we still human anymore? You know what I mean? Like that we're going to be dabbling in that territory biologically, technologically. It would not shock me in my lifetime that I would see somebody like that looks like maybe a Borg, or that someone will try that as a style choice or a transitioning choice, and then maybe another person will figure out morph into a emerging of trying different species stuff, like for just different stamina stuff. I could just like that. We're coming to that point where that's possible.
Yeah, so first of all, human had been changing in other animals all the time, unless you
Absolutely.
believe in intelligence design. But
Mm-hmm.
assuming you believe in evolution, uh, yeah, like my kids are different than me. I'm a bit different than my parents, and if you take two populations and separate them long enough, they will become diverse, and eventually they will become different species. So genetic changes is not something new.
No.
What what is becoming new is that genetic changes are engineered rather than being a product of evolution.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be done by design and it could be done a lot faster. And that's perhaps where you will like that's perhaps where you want to put some regulations,
Mm-hmm.
some kind of like I said, do some kind of moral debate.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Like what happened? Let's say you make changes to the human brain that it could perform the job better, but then he lose out.
well, there's that. Again, but there's also other things too. Like, okay, yeah, you can genetically, like we were already talking about genetically, you can choose the eye color of a kid. It's possible now, right? Should you? Right? Maybe the stuff we by design, and I think this, especially at the beginning, this is going to be true for sure. The stuff we come up with by design may not get the results we intended, right? Like we don't these little things in nature, although they do seem kind of random, they all connect in a certain way. And when we try to, especially when we do early design stuff, we don't always fully understand why certain things go a certain way. And I think especially at the beginning, all right, slow, go slow and actually see the results before we start testing it on human beings or on like our more complex life forms, because we have been doing it. Like we put an ear on a mouse just because we could. But I mean, what's the consequence of the life of that mouse? You know what I mean? And what is the consequence of what we our actions have reactions? And I think learning and understanding those things, I mean, we're probably still a few decades from fully understanding that. Um, could be wrong. I mean, I know there's been lots of work in that. There's already been a lot of work in that development as well.
Yeah, I
But
pretty much agree with you. But if I'm allowed to become the devil's advocate,
sure,
let's talk about COVID
yeah,
and the vaccine again.
uh-huh.
So w- currently, more than 2 million people died from COVID. A
Uh-huh.
lot of people got permanent damage. How much do you think we should delay the vaccine to know more about it and allow more people to die before we start using?
Okay. I'll flip this. I'll flip this the other way. We want to make sure that the cure isn't more dangerous than the disease, right? If there have been instances in history where we've given used to be when World War II, when the flu vaccine was made, they tested it. They would test it. They tested it for 2 years before they actually said it was regular, and they would test it on soldiers in the battlefield. The idea was, okay, we think this is going to work exactly at what we see, but we also realize that there's a long-term effect, right? So the flip side. So here's the thing: we built this thing super fast, but there's no long-term testing on it. We don't know for sure what the impact's going to be on people in the long term. The cure might be more damaging than the disease. Then again, it might be better, but we don't actually know for sure, and we won't know for sure. All right, and we won't know for sure until we look at it years down the line, right? So on the one hand, and because we're dealing with something that's altering, like these vaccines are going even deeper into genetic code than, say, even the previous vaccines.
It's
We
it's
made
not
it.
it's changing it's adding the mRNA.
Yeah,
Not,
exactly.
but it
So,
does not change the DNA.
oh no,
The
okay,
DNA will say will not be changed. DNA can generate mRNA. mRNA does not
no, fair
modify
enough.
DNA, so it's not going to change your DNA.
I stand corrected. I stand corrected. But it does. It is create. It is. But the long term, we are not going to know what that actually is going to do to us for a year or 2 years or 3 years down the road. Now, maybe it gets rid of COVID, but maybe it causes another problem, right? Maybe nothing, or maybe it doesn't work, right? Maybe it does work perfectly, totally,
Yeah,
absolutely.
we already tested it on 38,000 people when we know it's
There's
working, and 95% of the time.
38,000 on 8 billion.
38,000, yeah.
Yeah, on 8 billion, right? So this is a large scale, right? This is that. I mean, on the scale we're talking is a lot larger than anything that's ever been attempted. So that's that's the flip side, right? So the flip side is we're going into it, and it could be, and it probably will work out just fine. But then again, there's always a risk, no matter what we do, right? No matter what we do, there's a risk it could be worse, and it has
But
happened.
there's also a risk of not doing anything.
Oh, absolutely. No, there's a
We
risk.
know the result of not doing
There's
anything.
a risk both ways. There's a risk both ways, right? I'm not denying that. So the question then becomes, which is the riskier proposition, right? That's the real question. If the question, and right, which is the more bigger unknown, right? That's a more and again, older times, right? They would give it a 2 year. They would study it for about 2 years before they actually said yes. Let's go out there. Let's do it. This was what, March when this started, and we're already in like 9 months, right? So I mean, it's quicker, a lot quicker, and I can see where someone would be like, and like I said, when it comes out next year, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait and see, just out of for my own. If no one's got problems, great, great. But if it has problems, I'll see. But again, that's my decision. Somebody else, someone that's more immunocompromised, I don't know what the answer on that one would be.
Yeah,
So
immunocompromise could be a problem, and I know that some people in UK that have allergies had
they,
some.
they've they already put a big precaution. They already said, no, if you have serious allergies, don't get it. Just don't, because of that. So I mean, that's the thing, right? Something this quick, right? That's the flip side. That's the risk, right?
and
So
the and the test they didn't do it on people with who are immunocompromised.
yeah. So, and ironically, those are the people that need it the most, right? Um,
If you
so
vaccinate the rest of the population, then the disease will die out.
well, yeah, but I mean that's. But again, going on it from risk. Since we're playing the game of risk versus reward, right? Historically, it's usually tested for a couple years before they actually say, okay, let's put it out there. We're not doing that this time. We're just putting it out there, right? So we short term we know what it does, but we really have no idea what that's going to be long term.
Yeah.
Right. That's the DA about it. But hopefully it works out. I really do hope it all works out. So
Anyway, in my blog and also in my video, even though these are topics that I try to engage people with, I'm talk mostly about space.
yes, yes.
By the
So
way, genetic engineering could also help space. One of the big,
absolutely. I think
yeah. In the novel that I'm writing right now, one of the problem of a colony on Mars, it's that galactic cosmic radiation. So radiation is come from the cosmos and from the Big Bang or the galaxies, and it causes damage to your DNA. And so in my story, the couple of groups of people that one of the groups, they genetically engineer themselves to be more resilient to genetic changes. So they have a better repair mechanism that any damage that they suffer, the body knows how to repair it. And most of the people there are normal people. So again, you have people divided by class between those who can modify themselves and those who
I
can't.
I did something similar actually in mine, although maybe not for different. I did a novel about a virus that made everybody immortal. So I flipped the idea. Instead of actually killing you, it made everybody live forever. The catch was, um, it killed any child under the age of 6, and it had various effects on kids that were older than that. Some grew up very quickly, some grew up slowly, and the idea was everybody could heal from practically anything. Right? Smarter. It was a smarter. The white blood cell counts were smarter. Everything in your body just could handle damage on a much better level. So, but you couldn't have kids. That was the flip side.
So
Like,
that means the population cannot grow.
yeah, no, can't
Or
grow.
can't you do something like Larry and Ivan did that with the protectors race, that only people after the age of 40, after they already had kids, then they took the drug?
Yeah, but that wasn't the case. I hear everybody just got infected. So it was like I play with the idea of what an enhanced immune system, enhanced healing factor would do with people. It's interesting. In my story, the value of life dropped significantly because nobody could die, and it was an interesting. Like I still talking about, like, my story dealt with aging and immortality, life and death. What's the point of it? Your story, it dealt with it's actually a more interesting form of survival. For me personally, what I'd be very curious about is what kind of genetic modifications, what kind of generic modifications for like surviving in a vacuum, because in a vacuum. Vacuum is a big thing about outer space. In outer space, it's almost like the water and the waves in an ocean. Someone that could actually survive there could also survive, like, one of the areas of, like, another area of exploration we still haven't fully done in our world is under the sea, because the pressures of the water hit such a point that, like, nobody can go below a certain point.
I think
But
they made an experiment with tradigates, the water bears,
yeah,
animals, and they are able to survive in vacuum for not permanently, but for a few years.
so they're working
Then
on
when you introduce them back to water, then they will come back to life.
that.
So they don't live the kind of suspended animation. They
Okay, so okay, that's interesting. I did not know. Because that's the challenge of space. Because if such a big vacuum between, like, it's amazing how much, like, there's life and then there's life and there's this big void in between. It's almost like a challenge, right? So, and that's where I think genetic engineering could be really, really, really interesting. Um,
and
would you
again,
want to live forever? Like,
pardon?
like we were talking about, like, aging earlier. How long would you want to live? Like, honestly.
Honestly, I don't plan to die.
No, okay. You don't plan to die?
No. Let me ask you a question.
Hmm.
Do you want to get Alzheimer and die in painful death in the
I've
age
come
of
to peace
80?
with it. I
Hmm?
mean, to answer your question, I've had my own, like, experience with my mortality when I was younger, and it kind of what it did for me personally was, it's terrifying on one hand, but on the other hand, it put things in perspective. Like, and this is why I'm asking this question. I would love, say, an extra 50 years. I'd love an extra 50 years.
Okay, and let's say these 50 years come to pass and people ask you, doctors ask you, do you want to die now or do you want to live a few more years healthy?
I think there would come a point I'd want to die. Like, honestly,
What
just
point?
like, and here's why. Like, I think there comes a point for me. Like, I know this. Like, one of the things that makes life so interesting or so precious is the time we have, and the fact that it is finite, and that means that it gives a sense of urgency and a sense of change. Life is, like, by its very nature, changes constantly, right? If I'm now, again, I could live. If all goes well, I could conceivably make it to 120. I probably won't. It'd be probably closer to 80 or 90, or maybe or somewhere between 80 and 90. But I'm but I could conceivably, it's possible for me to go to 120 right now. Say I get an extra 50 years. So depending on how you look at it, I lived to 130 or I lived to 150. Um, somewhere between that. That's a cool life. I would still be very fulfilled at 150 years. But at
But
200,
what happened when you are 150 and you feel healthy and your
yeah,
cognitive ability is good and you're working, you're doing what you love, and you're 150? Would you die there?
what,
Ask you, do you want to die now?
if they asked me, do I right that minute?
Yeah.
No. Do I think would I want another treatment to live longer? Probably no. I think there would come a point. There would come a point with me, and I know this, where I'd be like, I'm okay to die. Like again, my own personal experience with it. There's going to come a point. There's going to be a point in life where I'm going to be ready to move on to whatever's beyond this. Whether you believe that there's anything or not, I think there's a point where I am ready to do it. There'll be a point in my own personal experiences have kind of prepped me for this. I know one day I'm going to die, so I'm trying to live every moment as if it's my last. I think I could definitely do that. If there's no urgency, I'd lose that. And I think and then at some point I would become attached to life. It's almost like life would become the womb, right? A cocoon where you don't escape to whatever's out there. And I don't know if I'd want that forever.
So
I wouldn't
let's
mind
ask
them.
a question
Mm,
that maybe explain your behavior. Do you believe in afterlife?
absolutely.
Okay, so maybe that's the difference
No,
between us.
oh no, that you know what? That's a big part of it. But I also, with my own experience with what
So you
happened.
think that when you die, this is not the end, there is something else. You see, I
But
don't believe
even but
that.
but even if there's not, like, I couldn't, like, I look, even me believing that, I can't say for sure. Like, I don't know what's beyond there, but I had an experience when I was 25, around 25. Actually, it was closer to 27, but 25, to say 25 for the sake of the story. That I was confronted with my mortality, like, right in the face. Like, I knew that there was a chance in that situation that I was going to die. But in that situation, I came to a realization that one day I am going to die, and one day it's going to be the right thing. And it's a really interesting, and if you've never been through that, it's really hard to really explain that. But but when I went through that, it made me realize that I am immortal, and that's not a bad thing. And I recognize the fact that one day I'm going to walk away. Now, whether or not there's anything really beyond that, I don't want to die. I want to make that very clear. I don't want to die, but I understand that like death's a part of life, and I don't think you can entirely. I think at some point all of us have to come to peace with that. That's a part of this journey too. Whether you believe there's something beyond that or not, what matters is how did Data put this in Picard? I watched this in Picard. I
Yeah,
wish you
this
had
is the
lived.
part of the card I didn't like.
No, Picard as a whole had some huge flaws, but I really did like the scene. The final scene with him and Data was really beautiful, and the thing is, I need you to unplug me. He went to Picard, and Picard goes, "Well, do you want to die?" Not exactly, right? And no one wants to die, but but there's a point of acceptance where people realize that you're going to die, and whether you believe in an afterlife or you don't. Even if I didn't believe what I believed after that experience, there's going to be a time when I come face to face with that again, and I'm just going to be like, okay, and I will just go forward. And that's me. That's just my own personal life experience.
I also had a near-death experience when I was younger.
Yeah.
I went to Thailand and I went to Kanchanaburi where they built a bridge on the Kwai River, and I
Okay.
was on a motorcycle, and there was on the highway at some point there was a roadblock, but unlike in Western country, you didn't have sign or like red, orange tapes or anything. It was not bare metal, and it came to me here at this speed at 70k, And I, I was lucky because it was just after my army training, so if something happened, you drop immediately. That's
Mm,
reflex. So
mm-hmm,
had I wait a split second more, it would have hit my head at 70K, and I would be gone. So,
mm-hmm.
I, so does it mean I'm immortal? No. Do I
No, God,
think
no.
I'll die? Yes. Do I want to die?
No one wants to die.
No.
No one
Do
wants to
I
die.
die between the age and 80 and 90, suffering for very serious health issues like Alzheimer, cancer, cardiovascular, in pain and die? No. I prefer to be healthy.
No,
What can I tell you?
but
Do
you,
I believe in there is an afterlife that if you die, you go to some a better place? No. So
but,
the,
but,
the,
but you could also be
that's
like my grandmother, Eddie.
why would I want to die? I
Yeah,
mean,
you could also be like my grandma. No one wants to die ever.
so
You go,
I don't want. So I think there is a good chance I'll die. I also don't accept that death is inevitable in the, let's say, in the next few hundred years, given all the technology progress trends that we spoke in the past. So potentially in 20, 15, 20, 30 years, there is a chance it will be possible to reverse aging. It's already done to some degree of success with mice. Uh, but it's going to take many, many years before it will be transferred to human. And also the process with mice, it's only given them like 30, 40% health span. But I'm cautiously optimist that modern medical science will provide in the next few decades a way to resolve a lot of the age-related issues we have. And do you ask me if I want to suffer and die horribly at the age of 80? No.
no, but I think here's the I'm gonna throw now. I'm gonna be a little bit of a devil's advocate with you. My grandmother is 80 and she's dating. She's having fun.
Okay.
My grandmother is 80 years old and she's dating again. And she's having the time of her life with the person. I think there's something about watching people as I've gotten older, and as I've become a lot more comfortable as a person as I've gotten older. And I look at where she's at in her 80s, and like, and she's enjoying her life. And I'm sure there are days there are pain for sure, but she's happy, she's healthy, and I look at that as I don't think necessarily 80 and 90 years old is the end either. So Christopher Lee,
Yeah.
do you remember Count Dooku? Count Dooku, Saruman, Lord of the Rings, Christopher Lee, that right? At 90 years old, he cut his first rock song at 90, which I think is just such a freaking cool thing. I don't think we stop living even if we grow old, if that makes sense, right? I
Yeah.
think what happens is we evolve and we change, and and again, something we talked about earlier. I don't mind. I love another 50 years. I think I could do another 50 years. But I also think I don't mind the experience. I'm older now. I don't recover like I did when I was younger. I'm stronger than I was when I was younger, right? But I know that too will one day go. I'll get to 50 years old, and I'll still be able to lift a house, but I'm going to need a nap afterwards. And when I'm 80 years old, if I jump on a trampoline with kids, I'm going to be down for days. I mean, that's just how life that's how life's going to kick your butt. But I've enjoyed the process of discovering new things about myself with each and every experience I've had. And ironically, I mean, pain's a powerful teacher. You know what I mean? Sometimes too, and yeah, I think that's I don't think it's all bad. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean,
If you're suffering in a lot of pain, then I agree. But if you're healthy and
yeah,
you're happy,
yeah. No, but hey, I don't blame you, man. Like I said earlier, one thing we both absolutely agree on: no one wants to die. I mean, no one wants to, right? It's not like I'm jumping ahead. I think I'm for just me personally. I'm just at peace that I'm going to get older. This hair is going to go gray. Eventually, I'm not going to have hair, right? Eventually, I'm going to
I'm starting to lose my
yeah,
hair.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, hey, listen, you still look good, man. You still look good. I'm sure and you still have an amazing smile, dude. You really do. I really like. So I mean, it's you're still making magic, man. I mean, I admire your YouTube show. I admire the fact that you've gone out and you actually are putting your stuff out on YouTube. Like you're trying it, and I want to thank you too.
Yeah,
So
the last episode got a little bit more view, 200 and something. So, what is your strategy about YouTube?
my strategy about YouTube is very much what a streamer does on Twitch. Like I'm treating YouTube and Twitch like a video game streamer, somebody that streams games. I'm doing the same thing. I'm treating it like so I look at some of the people that have hundreds of thousands of followers and what they actually have in common. And one of the things they do is they constantly put new content out there. They do big stuff, right? And that's what Twitch is. Twitch is my big stuff, like my streaming, my big streams, and people are watching it right now. And but also like what I'm doing with YouTube is I'm taking these streams and I make them clips, short little things to advertise my stream, the fact that I'm going live. I'm still updating it a little bit. Like I still have to put like a headline, like maybe some kind of like graphic to headline things, and I still have to put the thank you for watching my show. If you like this, please subscribe here or here. Like I still haven't done that yet. But the idea is my YouTube is going to be advertising my Twitch, and then I'm still doing audio. Like I'm still making audio episodes of my podcast as well. So what I'm essentially doing is I'm scaling it to 3 different audiences. Is what I'm doing.
Bigger platform, and maybe there is cross pollination between the different platforms.
Exactly.
So that's what I'm trying to do with YouTube and Quora.
Yeah. Okay. So you're doing it that way. So
because Quora, for some reason, I become a relative success.
Dude, you got a following, man. That's awesome, right? That's. I mean, you can't deny where your fans are, right? You can't like that's. You're the. I am going to say this. You are a romantic when it comes to space. I can see why people would like. You're a smart guy. You know what you're talking about. You're educating me as we're going on the show, which has actually been kind of fun. And then, but you're passionate about it, and I can really tell. Like I can tell, like you're genuinely passionate. Have you read your stuff on Quora? Like have you actually done like a filming where you're actually reading from your book, or any of your books?
I can give you a link that the viewers of your podcast can go to my Quora.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. When this is over, send me the link, and I'll make sure to include it in both the audio and in the description of the episode for sure. But the reason I'm bringing this up is like you care, like you genuinely you are very fascinated about where the future's going. And I can definitely tell like that to you is what you care about more than anything else, which is why science fiction fits you as well as it does, right? But also why you're passionate about space, you're passionate about technology. We haven't actually talked about consciousness. Like, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, we only have an hour and a change.
No, it's all good. I know it's fine. I don't mind. But another time for sure. But my point being is, you care. I think you're going to do very well. But my format, if you want to understand my strategy, I look at what the video game streamers have done with the really successful ones, and I'm copying their strategy, which is I do big stuff, like my big stuff on Twitch, right? And I do my small stuff on YouTube, right? I'll still have like stuff like I use my YouTube for beyond that for storage, but my goal is Twitch. Now, I'm making that my big focus, and I'm making YouTube my secondary focus, and then I'm just scaling.
Yeah, I'm doing YouTube because I feel I'm spread thin already.
No, that's fair. No, that's totally fair. No, I get like for me it makes sense. I see where also
Also, what is the audience age on Twitch?
Younger. They're younger. They on average they're younger. It's basically you're hitting a younger audience about it. But it's also just the fact that my show works on Twitch for the other reason too, is that it's an interactive show. It's a very interactive show. Like I'm talking to you, people can comment to me on this thing as we go too, and and that's kind of how I see it. Like I see the interaction there. I actually have to get better because this is also on Facebook as well. So I gotta get better with the Facebook interactions. Um, but it's but like I've heard some very cool. There's been some cool comments from some people there. Um, I have to actually answer that question that Nathan asked. Answer today. I'll do that before we wrap up. But
Are the pitching? Are people watching this?
oh, absolutely. No, people are watching. Have been watching this the
So
whole time.
do they have any question?
Well, one was for me, which was how long do you think you're gonna wait for the vaccine? And to be consistent with what I've said, I'm going to wait 2 years. I'm going to just wait and see how the impact on the world has been before I will personally touch it. By then, the virus might not be the big threat at that point in time. At the same token, like I'll know 2 years, we're going to have a better idea how the technology works. Like that's just me. I don't think. Again, it has been rushed before, and again, this is a different technology, and I get that, but I'm gonna wait and see how it goes for a couple years. It's better, and I'm just taking that as a cautious thing. It's my body. I have to look at the fact that if this screws up right now, it's gonna screw up, and I just would rather just say, okay, what are the risks, and what are and also, but in all fairness, I also have the luxury too. I almost never get sick, right? I have a very strong immune system as is, so. Someone else,
people who were sick. I mean, they didn't die, but they say it's a like flu times 10. It's
exactly.
horrible. It's very tough. I mean,
Yeah,
you don't want to have it, even if you're likely not to die.
But again, 2 years. I'll wait. I'll wait. I don't get a like. I really don't get sick. It's
for me, probably 6 months or so. I would have liked to get it before Comic Expo.
No, it's fair. No, it's just like I said. I'm just like he asked a question. I'm just answering the question. I mean, and I'm just saying, just from my own point of view, from a consistency point of view, like I'd wait. What I would feel like I would feel comfortable say, which for me would be about 2 years, because at that point, if there are any long-term side effects, they would start to be visible, and if they're not, then why would you fight it, right? So that's my take on it, right? So. But beyond that, let's see if there's any other questions here. He loves the interaction. So Nathan's live on the interaction between us. So yeah, thanks, Nathan. Thanks for watching. I think we're gonna have a couple more questions and we'll wrap up. Are you working on anything besides your YouTube channel, like book-wise? Are you releasing anything anytime soon?
I'm still working on Quera. Really, I released a short story not too long ago, maybe a couple of months, and it's available on Amazon.
Okay.
And also, I'm working on a novel, but slowly, the full-time job thingy. So
no, I got you.
It's a story that takes place on Mars, and it has talk about different. Basically, it's a future shock. So it is artificial intelligence that we didn't have a chance to talk about. We talked about genetic engineering, and of course about space and radiation and the risk of living in space.
So how about this? Would you like to come back, say, in February or March and continue discussing some of the things we kind of missed out on this time? Because we could talk about consciousness, we can talk about artificial intelligence, we could talk about there's a lot to the future. There really is. So would you like that?
Yeah, artificial intelligence is actually a little bit closer to what I do in my day job, which is in IT. I work in IT.
So okay, so next time for sure. So promise, we'll set up a date when this, like right when this is over. We'll set up a date. Artificial intelligence, and I'll happily listen for the ride because
and I'll send you the links to Amazon.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So
YouTube.
Yeah, you do that. How about this? To wrap this up, to wrap this particular chat up though for this time, why don't you tell people where people can find you? Where people can find you, talk about your YouTube channel where people can find you there for sure.
Okay, on YouTube channel, it's called Sci and Sci Fi.
Mm-hmm.
So putting the science part inside science fiction. And Quera, it's Ron S. Friedman. Amazon, it's Ron S. Friedman. I'm also on Twitter, Ron S. Friedman, with @sign before.
Mm-hmm.
I also have Instagram. I'm not too active over there, and yeah.
Okay, and okay, that and beyond that, guy,
Uh,
is there anything else?
any other social media? I have a website,
Yeah,
not too
well, yeah,
active.
mention your website for sure.
It's word.friedman.wordpress.com.
Okay, okay.
Maybe I'll just send you the link to
No,
everywhere.
no, no, absolutely. But it's always good to mention any of this stuff. Finally, why don't you tell people about your last novel release anyway, just because, and then I'll wrap up the show.
Oh, yeah, I had 18 short story and 2 books out. One is alternate history World War II time travel. That book was an Amazon.ca #1 bestseller. What would happen if we take a modern submarine and take it to pre-World War II in an attempt to stop the war and stop the Holocaust? Of course, after they travel back in time, didn't go according to plan, and otherwise, we don't have the story.
It is a fun book. I started reading it, and it's great. Now, my
Yeah,
copy of it sadly is still in Calgary, so I didn't
yeah.
get.
So it's
Yeah,
yeah, that one was twice an Amazon.ca #1 bestseller in its category,
it's
and
awesome, which is awesome.
yeah, and Calgary Herald bestseller. And yeah, the other one is a short story collection about the topics that we spoke earlier about space.
Yes.
The idea there is some kind of catastrophe that happened on Earth in maybe 60, 70 years in the future. And then the space colony we have on Mars, on the asteroid belt, on Titan, then suddenly they have to survive without even being threatened by Earth. But at least they have to survive without resupply.
Yeah.
So what happened then? So that one is called Escape Velocity. The book I'm working on right now that takes place on Mars is set in the same universe.
All right. Oh, really? That's cool.
Yes.
Is this the first novel? Like in that is like your first official novel in that universe, or is it a more
The
short
first
stories?
novel, yeah.
Okay.
I have a few short stories in this universe, but now it's the first novel.
All right.
So because I'm a slow writer, I cannot promise when it will be out, but
That's okay.
that's what I'm working.
Totally okay. Ron, I really appreciate having you on the show. This was a lot of fun. And for anyone that's listening, if you guys want to subscribe to my Twitch channel, it is just Josh and Podcast, twitch.tv. My YouTube channel is Joshua Penteloresco. If you want to support me on my podcast regularly, I'm on every platform: iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, Deezer, Audible as well. Stay inspired, keep shining in the darkness, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with To Meet a Writer.